What if I told you that every time you've been kind, you've been losing? Not in some poetic, metaphorical way. Losing actual power, actual respect, actual control over your own life. You've been taught that kindness is strength, that being good makes you valuable, that fairness will protect you. It won't. Machiavelli warned about this 5 centuries ago, and you ignored him. You ignored him because the truth is uncomfortable, because accepting it means admitting that every time someone took advantage of you, it wasn't their fault. It was yours. You handed them the weapon. You taught them how to use it. And now you're wondering why you keep getting hurt. Here's the reality. Kindness without boundaries is just another word for weakness. Goodness without power is an invitation to be devoured. And fairness? Fairness is what the powerless beg for when they realize they have no control. You think the world rewards virtue? It doesn't. It rewards dominance. It rewards those who understand the psychology of fear, respect, and consequence. It rewards those who know when to give and when to withhold, when to be warm and when to be cold, when to speak and when to let silence do the killing. This isn't about being cruel, it's about being awake. You've spent your life playing by rules that don't exist. You've waited for fairness that will never come. You've given your energy, your time, your loyalty to people who saw it as weakness, not virtue. And the moment you stopped being useful, they disappeared. Not because they're evil, because you made yourself disposable. You taught them that your kindness had no cost, that your respect had no price, that your boundaries were negotiable. And now you're here, looking for answers because deep down you know something is wrong. You know you've been losing a game you didn't even realize you were playing. This isn't a motivational speech. This isn't about hope or healing or finding your inner light. This is about waking up to the mechanics of power, about understanding that every interaction is a negotiation, every relationship is a test, and every act of unconditional goodness is a signal to those who study human behavior. You're easy to control. Machiavelli didn't write The Prince to make you feel good. He wrote it to make you dangerous, to teach you that survival requires ruthlessness, that respect requires consequence, that power requires the willingness to be cold when the world demands warmth. So here's the choice. Keep being kind and keep losing, or learn the psychology that separates the used from the untouchable. Learn why approval destroys dominance, why fairness makes you predictable, why withholding is power, why boundaries are weapons, why goodness without strength is just another way to die slowly. This isn't theory. This is survival. And survival doesn't care about your morals. It cares about your understanding of control. You think kindness makes you strong. It doesn't. Every time you give without calculation, you sign an invisible contract, one where you surrender control and they collect power. Kindness becomes weakness the moment you expect something in return. Fairness, gratitude, respect. None of these are guaranteed. They're illusions you create to justify your need for approval. And that need is where you lose. People don't remember your kindness. They remember how easy you were to manipulate. I've watched this pattern destroy men who believed goodness was armor. It's not. Goodness without boundaries is an open wound. You give your time, your energy, your loyalty, and in return, you get used. The psychology here is simple. People value what costs them something. When you offer yourself freely, you teach them you're worthless. This isn't cruelty, it's survival. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He wrote that mercy, when poorly timed, invites chaos. Kindness must be strategic, not emotional. Otherwise, it's just weakness dressed in virtue. Think of kindness as currency. If you hand it out without limits, it inflates. It loses value. But if you withhold it, calculate when to spend it, you create scarcity. Scarcity breeds respect. When people know you won't always be there to save them, they start to fear losing access to you. That fear is the foundation of dominance. You don't need to be cruel. You need to be selective. The moment you make your kindness conditional, you reclaim power. And power, not sympathy, is what keeps you from being devoured. Most people confuse kindness with weakness because they've never seen kindness weaponized. A kind act, delivered at the right moment, can break someone's resistance entirely. But this only works if your default state isn't generosity, it's control. When you're known for being hard, one moment of unexpected kindness becomes unforgettable. It creates debt. It shifts psychology. But when you're always kind, that same act means nothing. You become predictable, and predictability is death in human behavior. The manipulator studies patterns. The kind man is the easiest pattern to read. You've been taught that being good makes you noble, but nobility without strength is just a target. The world rewards those who understand the difference between virtue and survival. Virtue is what you perform for others. Survival is what you practice in silence. If you want respect, stop giving without consequence. Stop being available to everyone. Stop making kindness your identity. Make it your weapon. And weapons are only effective when you know exactly when to use them. You chase approval because you think it proves your worth. It doesn't. It proves you don't believe in it yourself. Every time you seek validation from someone else, you hand them a piece of your power. They didn't ask for it. You gave it. And now they control how you feel about yourself. This is the hidden manipulation. Not theirs, but yours. You've turned yourself into a puppet, and the strings are made of their opinions. Approval is a drug. It feels good in the moment, but it hollows you out over time. And the more you chase it, the less you get. People don't respect those who need them. They respect those who don't. This is basic psychology. Desperation has a smell. It leaks through your words, your body language, your decisions. When you act to be liked, you signal weakness. When you act because you've decided it's right, you signal dominance. The difference is in the source. One comes from fear of rejection. The other comes from control. Machiavelli warned that a ruler who seeks love over fear will be destroyed. Not because love is weak, but because needing it is. When your actions depend on someone else's reaction, you've already lost the game. I learned this the hard way. I used to measure my value by how people responded to me. If they smiled, I felt strong. If they ignored me, I felt invisible. That cycle crushed me for years. Then I realized something. The moment I stopped asking for permission to exist, people started paying attention. Not because I changed who I was, but because I stopped performing for them. The shift wasn't in my behavior. It was in my psychology. I stopped needing their approval, and suddenly I had their respect. That's the paradox. Respect comes when you stop chasing it. Think of approval like water. If you're drowning, you grab at anything, but if you're standing on solid ground, you decide when to drink. Most people are drowning. They reach for every compliment, every nod, every sign that they matter. And in doing so, they teach others that their respect is cheap. But when you withhold your need for validation, when you move through the world like you already know your worth, something shifts. People start to wonder why you don't need them. That curiosity becomes respect. That respect becomes power. And power is the only currency that matters in human interaction. Stop asking if you're enough. Stop waiting for someone to tell you it's okay to take up space. The moment you need external confirmation, you become controllable. And those who control themselves control the room. Approval is for those who haven't yet discovered the ruthlessness of self-belief. You demand fairness because you think the world owes you something. It doesn't. Fairness is a concept invented by those who lack power to justify why they should have it. When you cry out for equality, for justice, for balance, you're admitting you have no control. You're asking someone else to intervene on your behalf. And in that ask, you reveal your position. You're not a player. You're a victim waiting for rescue. The world doesn't respond to fairness. It responds to force, to leverage, to consequence. Fairness is what the weak call it when they want the strong to stop winning. Predictability is death in psychology. The moment someone can anticipate your next move, you lose leverage. And nothing makes you more predictable than demanding fairness. Because fairness follows rules. It follows patterns. It follows emotion. When you operate from a place of, "This isn't fair," you're telegraphing exactly what you'll do next: complain, retreat, or beg for change. None of those actions command respect. They command pity. And pity is just dominance wearing a kind face. You think people feel bad for you. They don't. They feel superior to you. I watched a colleague lose everything because he couldn't let go of fairness. He worked harder than anyone else. He showed up early, stayed late, played by every rule. And when the promotion went to someone less qualified, he was devastated. "It's not fair," he kept saying. And he was right. It wasn't fair. But fairness had nothing to do with it. The other person understood power dynamics. He built relationships. He made himself indispensable in ways that had nothing to do with merit. My colleague thought the game was about effort. It wasn't. It was about control. And he had none. Think of fairness as a cage. It feels safe because it has rules. But rules only protect you if everyone follows them. And they don't. The manipulator breaks rules while you follow them. The ruthless take what they want while you wait your turn. By the time you realize fairness was a lie, they've already won. This is why Machiavelli advised that a ruler must know how to be unfair when necessary. Not out of cruelty, out of survival. Because those who cling to fairness become easy targets. They're predictable. They're passive. They're waiting for justice that will never come. Stop expecting the world to play by your rules. Stop thinking that if you're good enough, fair enough, kind enough, you'll be rewarded. You won't. You'll be used. And when you're no longer useful, you'll be discarded. Fairness is a fantasy sold to keep you compliant. Control is the truth. You give everything because you think it proves your value. It doesn't. It proves you don't understand scarcity. The moment you reveal all of yourself, your thoughts, your emotions, your strategies, you become disposable. People don't cherish what's freely available. They cherish what they have to work for. Power doesn't live in what you show. It lives in what you keep hidden. Every word you withhold is a tool. Every secret you guard is leverage. The more you expose, the less control you have. Mystery creates respect. Transparency creates contempt. Silence is the most underrated weapon in human psychology. When you speak less, people fill the gaps with their own assumptions. And those assumptions almost always favor you. They imagine you're calculating something they can't see. They imagine you know something they don't. That uncertainty keeps them off balance. It keeps them respectful. But the moment you explain yourself, The moment you justify your actions or reveal your reasoning, you lose that edge. You become human. You become predictable. And predictability, as always, is weakness. I've seen men destroy their own dominance simply by talking too much. Think about the last time someone told you everything about themselves in the first conversation. Did you respect them more? Or did you feel like you already owned them? You owned them because they handed you the map to their psychology. You knew their fears, their desires, their boundaries. There was nothing left to discover. No tension, no intrigue, just exposure. Now think about someone who revealed almost nothing, who listened more than they spoke, who answered questions with questions. That person stayed in your mind. You kept trying to figure them out. That's the power of withholding. It turns you into a puzzle people need to solve. Machiavelli understood this instinctively. He advised rulers to be miserly with their trust, their kindness, their intentions. Not because generosity is wrong, but because it must be rare to be valuable. When you give sparingly, each gift carries weight. When you speak sparingly, each word becomes important. But when you pour yourself out to anyone who asks, you become a resource, not a person, and resources get used until they're empty. Withholding isn't cruelty, it's self-preservation. It's understanding that your presence, your attention, your knowledge, these are currencies. And you don't spend currency without getting something in return. Stop explaining yourself to people who haven't earned it. Stop offering your time to those who don't value it. Stop revealing your strategies to anyone who asks. The less you give, the more you're worth. And when you do give, make sure it's calculated. Make sure it serves you. Because power grows in the silence between what you know and what you reveal. You think boundaries are about protection. They're not. They're about dominance. Every time you say no, you're not defending yourself. You're asserting control. You're telling the world that your value isn't negotiable. Boundaries aren't walls you hide behind. They're weapons you deploy to reclaim authority over your own existence. Most people don't have boundaries. They have suggestions. They say no, then apologize for it. They draw a line, then let someone step over it because they don't want conflict. That's not a boundary. That's a performance of weakness. People test you constantly. Not because they're cruel, because they're human. Every interaction is a negotiation of power. When you let someone cross a boundary without consequence, you teach them that your limits don't matter. You teach them that your word is meaningless. And once they learn that, they'll push further. They'll take more, not because they hate you, because you've shown them they can. This is basic psychology. Behavior that goes unpunished gets repeated. When you fail to enforce your boundaries, you're training people to disrespect you, and you can't blame them for doing what you've allowed. I used to be terrified of saying no. I thought it made me selfish. I thought people would leave if I didn't bend to their needs. So I said yes to everything. Yes to favors I didn't have time for. Yes to conversations that drained me. Yes to relationships that took more than they gave. And you know what happened? People didn't respect me more. They respected me less. Because I was always available, I became invisible. I was the backup plan, the safe option, the one they could count on to never push back. It wasn't until I started saying no, without explanation, without guilt, that things changed. Suddenly, my time became valuable. My presence became something people had to earn. Think of boundaries like a fortress. If the gates are always open, no one values getting inside. But if the gates are closed, if entry requires permission, people start to understand what it costs to access you. That cost creates respect. It creates fear, not of you, but of losing you. And that fear is power. Machiavelli wrote that it's better to be feared than loved because fear is consistent. Love is conditional. Fear of consequence is what keeps people in line. Your boundaries are your consequences. Every time you enforce them, you remind people that you're not someone to be taken lightly. Stop apologizing for your limits. Stop softening your refusals with explanations. When you say no, let it stand alone. Let it be final. Let it carry weight. The moment you justify your boundary, you open it up for negotiation. And the moment it's negotiable, it's not a boundary anymore. It's just another weakness someone will exploit. You believe goodness protects you. It doesn't. It exposes you. Every act of unconditional virtue is a signal to those who study human behavior. You're easy to manipulate. Goodness is predictable, and predictability is the first thing a manipulator looks for. They don't waste time on the unpredictable, the cold, the selectively kind. They target the ones who are always available, always forgiving, always understanding. You think your goodness makes you noble. To them, it makes you a resource. And resources get used until they're empty, then discarded. The psychology of exploitation is simple. People don't exploit the strong, they exploit the weak. And weakness isn't about physical power. It's about emotional leverage. When you're good without boundaries, you hand them that leverage. You show them exactly where to push, where to pull, where to take. They learn your patterns. They learn that if they ask nicely, you'll say yes. If they guilt you, you'll cave. If they ignore you, you'll chase. This isn't malice. This is survival instinct. Human beings are wired to extract value from their environment. And if you position yourself as an endless well of goodness, they'll drink until you're dry. I knew a man who prided himself on never saying no to anyone. He called it integrity. He called it being a good person. What he didn't see was how people scheduled him into their lives only when they needed something. He was the friend they called at 2 a.m. for a ride, the co-worker who covered their shifts, the relative who loaned money that never came back, and he wore it like a badge. "I'm always there for people," he'd say. But they weren't there for him, because he'd taught them they didn't have to be. He'd made himself so available, so predictable, so unconditionally good, that he became invisible. Not a person, a function. Think of goodness like light. In a dark room, it's valuable. But in a world full of light, it means nothing. Your goodness only has power when it's rare. When people know you're capable of coldness, of refusal, of walking away, then your kindness becomes meaningful. It becomes a choice, not a character flaw. Machiavelli didn't argue against virtue. He argued against virtue without strength. A good man without power is a victim waiting to be devoured. A good man with power is a force no one dares to test. The difference isn't in the goodness. It's in the ruthlessness that protects it. Stop thinking your virtue will save you. Stop believing that if you're just good enough, people will treat you right. They won't. They'll treat you how you teach them to treat you. And if you teach them, you'll tolerate anything. They'll give you everything you don't want. Goodness without dominance is just another word for disposable. You think fear and respect are opposites. They're not. They're twins born from the same psychological root, consequence. People respect those they cannot afford to lose. They fear those who can walk away without hesitation. This isn't about cruelty. It's about value. When someone knows you won't tolerate disrespect, they adjust. When they know crossing you has a cost, they think twice. Fear isn't about making people cower. It's about making them calculate. And calculation is the foundation of all respect. You don't need to be loud. You need to be certain. Most people confuse respect with affection. They're not the same. Affection is what people feel when you make them comfortable. Respect is what they feel when you make them aware of your power. You can be liked and still be walked over, but you cannot be respected and dismissed. Respect requires a boundary enforced. It requires the willingness to let people experience the consequence of testing you. When you forgive without cost, when you accept apologies without change, you teach people that your limits are negotiable. And negotiable limits aren't limits. They're suggestions. Respect dies the moment consequence disappears. I learned this in a business negotiation years ago. I was offering a service at a fair price. The client kept pushing for discounts, for extras, for more time without more pay. I kept saying yes because I didn't want to seem difficult. I wanted them to like me. By the end, they didn't respect me. They saw me as desperate. Then I worked with another client who made a single demand I couldn't meet. I said no. I didn't apologize. I didn't explain. I just said no and prepared to walk. They didn't leave. They adjusted. They met my terms. Not because I was cruel, because I made them afraid of losing access to me. That fear became respect. And that respect became a better working relationship than any I'd built on approval. Think of respect like gravity. It's invisible, but it controls movement. When people respect you, they move carefully around you. They measure their words. They consider consequences before acting. That's not fear in the sense of terror. It's fear in the sense of awareness. They're aware you have power. They're aware you'll use it. Machiavelli wrote that a ruler should be feared in such a way that if he doesn't gain love, he avoids hatred. Fear without cruelty, power without malice. This is the balance. You make people aware of what they stand to lose, but you don't punish them for existing. You punish them for crossing you. Stop trying to be loved by everyone. Stop sacrificing respect for comfort. The moment you're willing to lose someone is the moment you gain control over the relationship. And control is what separates those who are obeyed from those who are ignored. You think ruthlessness means chaos. It doesn't. It means discipline. Real ruthlessness isn't anger. It isn't revenge. It isn't cruelty for its own sake. It's the cold calculation of when to act and when to withdraw. It's knowing exactly how much force to apply and when to apply nothing at all. Ruthlessness without control is just destruction, but ruthlessness with precision is dominance. Machiavelli didn't worship cruelty, he worshipped control. He understood that power isn't about being the loudest or the most violent. It's about being the most deliberate. And deliberate action requires emotional detachment. Most people are ruled by their emotions. They react instead of respond. They lash out when hurt. They cling when afraid. They explode when disrespected. This makes them predictable. And predictable people are easy to manipulate. Controlled ruthlessness is the opposite. It's the ability to feel anger and choose silence. To feel betrayal and choose strategy. To feel pain and choose nothing. When you detach from your emotions, you stop being a target. You become a mirror. People throw their chaos at you, and it reflects back without touching you. That stillness is terrifying to those who operate on emotion. They can't read you. They can't control you. And what they can't control, they respect. I once watched a colleague get humiliated in a meeting. The boss tore into him in front of everyone. Most people would have defended themselves, argued back, or shut down emotionally. He did none of that. He sat there expressionless and waited. When the boss finished, he said, "Understood," and left. No emotion, No explanation, just acknowledgement and exit. 2 weeks later, he was gone. He'd already secured a better position elsewhere. He didn't fight. He didn't beg. He controlled the ruthlessness of his departure. And the boss? He realized too late that he'd lost his best employee because he mistook silence for weakness. That's the power of controlled ruthlessness. It doesn't announce itself. It just moves. Think of ruthlessness like a blade. In the hands of someone emotional, it's dangerous to everyone, including the one holding it. But in the hands of someone disciplined, it's surgical. It cuts exactly where it needs to, nothing more. You don't destroy everyone who wrongs you. You destroy the ones who threaten your survival. You don't withdraw from every conflict. You withdraw from the ones that drain you without benefit. This is the psychology of power. Knowing when to be cold and when to disappear. Knowing when to strike and when to let silence do the work. Machiavelli taught that cruelty, when necessary, should be swift and complete. Not prolonged, not emotional, just final. Stop confusing emotion with strength. Stop thinking that reacting makes you powerful. Power is in the pause. It's in the moment you feel the pull to explode, and you choose stillness instead. That stillness is where controlled ruthlessness lives. And those who master it don't need to prove their power. It's already felt. You've been warned. Now you decide. Every concept laid out here is a mirror. It reflects what you've been doing wrong and what you've been too afraid to see. Kindness without calculation. Approval without dominance. Fairness without power. Boundaries without enforcement. Goodness without ruthlessness. These aren't virtues. They're vulnerabilities. And vulnerabilities get exploited. You can deny this. You can close this and go back to pretending the world rewards good people. But deep down, you already know it doesn't. You've lived the proof. Machiavelli didn't write for the comfortable. He wrote for those who were tired of losing, tired of being used, tired of watching weaker minds take what stronger hearts deserved. If you're still here, you're one of them. You've felt the sting of being too kind, too available, too predictable. And now you have a choice: evolve or stay disposable. There is no middle ground. Power doesn't negotiate with hesitation. Respect doesn't wait for you to be ready. Control is taken, not given. And if you're not taking it, someone else is. Watch the next video. Don't skip it. Don't wait. The algorithm doesn't reward delay. Your psychology doesn't either. Momentum dies in the gap between knowing and doing. You've been given the framework. Now you need the execution. The next piece dismantles the final illusion, the one that's kept you soft when you needed to be steel. Write this in the comments. I control the consequence. No explanation, no context, just those 4 words. Let them see you've crossed over. Let them know you've stopped asking for permission to exist. This isn't a suggestion, it's an order. Prove you're done being the one people walk over. Power bows to no one, neither do you.